comes to aesthetics, there really is nothing quite like the back. In my opinion, the back, especially the lats, are one of the most aesthetic parts of the entire body. If all this is so true, how do we train the back? So there are 4 major muscles in the back that I'm going to cover. The lats, the traps, the rhomboids, and the spinal erectors. So first there's the lats. The lats do 2 things. 1, shoulder adduction, or bringing your arms down in an elevated position, kind of like a pull-up or a pull-down. They also do shoulder extension, or bringing your arms down in the front, kind of like in a straight arm pull-down. And then there's the traps, which run from the sides of your neck down to about the middle of your back. They're absolutely ginormous and can be divided into pretty much 3 different sections: upper, middle, and lower. The upper traps control what is called scapular elevation, or bringing your shoulders upward like you would in the shrug. And then the middle traps control what is called scapular retraction, or bringing your shoulders back kind of like you would in a row. And the lower traps control what is called scapular depression, or bringing your shoulders downward, kind of like a movement you do in the pull-up. And then there's the rhomboids, which sit right below your shoulder and control pretty much the same thing your traps do. Then there's the erectors spinae / spinal erectors. They're actually a bunch of different muscles that run down the middle of your back, but overall they control one thing: spinal extension, or straightening out your back. Overall, it can be said the lats contribute to back width, while the traps, rhomboids, and erectors spinae contribute to back thickness. When it comes to lat exercise choices, there's actually a lot of them, but the 2 most famous being the lat pull down as well as the pull up. A lot of people like to put the pull up on a pedestal, but quite frankly, the lat pull down and the pull up are quite equal when it comes to lat growth. If you want to increase lat activation and the lat pull down, what you want to do is pull straight downward. Now this footage is a bit exaggerated on purpose, but you get the general idea. And then there are many, and I mean many, row exercises. Just name a few. There are the seated row, the machine row, the barbell row, the Yates row, the T-bar row, the landmine row. I could really go on. However, if I had to choose the best one for the lats, it'd probably be the barbell row or the seated row. All the other row variations work very well. Although if you have options of both the seated row and the barbell row, here are considerations. 1. If you have bad mobility, I choose a seated row as you need good mobility for the barbell row. Although you should begin to train your mobility because the barbell row is that good. Not to mention its potential for overload is really good. When it comes to grip width on the seated row, what you want to have is a more closer grip, as I'll target the lats more. As I'll get into later, if you want to target the traps more, you want to do a wider grip. Meanwhile, for the bent over barbell row, what you want to have again is a more closer grip around shoulder width, which will target the lats the most. And if you want to target the rear delts, rhomboids, and traps more, as I'll get into later, you have a wider grip. Other than the 3 main exercises for the lats, pull-ups, lat pull-downs, and rows, there are a few more. Then there's a cross-body lat pull-round, which is very good at stretching your lats out and helping you feel your lats, as many trainees struggle with feeling their lats. And then there's the aforementioned straight arm lat pull-down, which is very good at feeling your lats, as the last one was. I didn't mention it earlier, but there's also the dumbbell row, where they can be done with 1 arm or 2 arms, which is very good, although the 1 arm row is slightly better. And then there's a dumbbell pullover, which honestly I'm not a big fan of, as it targets the chest, tricep, and lats. Ignoring how it's an awkward combo, it isn't very good at targeting any of the 3, as it only just barely targets those 3 muscles. As well as, if you're curious, pull-up versus chin-up has no different on lat activation, it only changes bicep activation, as a chin-up targets the bicep more. And before I get to traps and rhomboids, I'm going to say something that hasn't been said much on YouTube. On back, there's a lot more overlap than there are on other muscles, i.e. different back muscles can be targeted with the same exercises, especially when it comes to the rhomboids, lats, middle, and lower traps. In order to target your upper traps, pretty much just one word: shrug. Whether it be the dumbbell shrug or the barbell shrug, it doesn't really matter. Be sure to have a shoulder width or slightly outside of shoulder width grip. Keep your elbows straight and bring your shoulders to about your ears. Also, the cable shrug is not very good, and I wouldn't do it if I were you. Then there's above the knee rack pulls, which, to being honest, is more of an ego lifting exercise than anything else. It has its place and can target the traps and even grow your traps, but it's much more of an ego lifting as well as like a damaged gym equipment, as you have to put on a lot of weight to feel anything. When it comes to deadlifts, the deadlifts are much more of a lower body exercise than they are a back exercise. They should be trained on lower body days. If you want to target the rhomboids or middle or lower traps, as I said earlier, you pretty much want to row with a wider grip. As a special note for the middle traps, you can also lat pull down more towards your chest, which will target the middle traps more. For the spinal erectors, there's pretty much one movement that targets them very well: the back extension. Be sure to control your breath very good on exercise, as it's very important, and if you don't, you're going to get lightheaded and at worst pass out. When it comes to programming, you're going to have at most 20 to 30 sets per week for your back. For exercise selection, you pretty much want to have two different movements for the lats, a row and a pull down. So if you want to max out your gains, you can have 2 to 4 exercises for your lats, 1 to 3 for your traps, and then 1 for your rector spinae, being the back extension. Although only 2 lat exercises and 1 trap exercise will work, as you can afford to cut a rector spinae, at least for a little bit. On a last note, you can afford to hit back 1 to 3 times per week, and honestly, that's about it.
Check out my new favorite channel. It is so good. Oh my god. Look at it.